if you guys are like me, which most of you men aren't like me, but if you guys are like me, you may have come across some information that talks about how, women are oppressed and, in all the ways that women are oppressed, right? There's tons of information out there. And if you're like me, you would start to investigate this and you start to read some of the data and you're like, wow, this is crazy that women are this oppressed, right? And then if you're like me, you will find yourself in spaces and places when you're talking to other men and you may say that and you think that it's like a no-brainer because even without me studying it, I always knew that women were more oppressed than men, right? But I may not have known like, every way that women were more oppressed, but I definitely knew that they were oppressed. So if somebody said that women were oppressed, I would never respond with this, like this type, I don't know, this is just one of the dumbest responses. All you hear is women aren't oppressed, or you hear usually the reaction is something to the effect of like, if women are oppressed, tell me something that women can do that women can't do that men can, right? And I instantly go to like the overturn of Roe v. Wade and things of that nature. But I'm gonna show some examples of how women are oppressed, and I'm pretty sure those of you who know, these examples are fairly common, and that's why I'm bringing them up because I want them to be easily accessible for men to find and look up. I don't want men to have to dig too deeply, but they are very common ways that women are oppressed, right? I want to be clear. Oppression doesn't have to be written in some document. Oppression does, I mean, in some government document. It could be written in the bylaws of a company. It could be written on in the, in the formula they create to sell products or whatever it is. Like these are all forms of oppression, right? If you go to the grocery store, right, or if you go to Target or wherever you buy your goods from, right, and a company, and there's only 4 companies that make 90% of the products in Target or any of these places, right? Imagine going out with my baby. Imagine going into these stores and everything costs, you know what I'm saying? Like for you as a woman, everything costs the same. It's not like you have all of this diversity where where these people are competing, where it's like, okay, well, if I want to buy a headband for me, then this brand may be charging more, right? But this brand is, relatively regularly priced, quote unquote. So I'll buy it from them. It's not like that. They all charge more for whatever product that is, right? That's how it works, right? Like that's like there are different ways that oppression shows up. You don't have oppression is if you don't have any control over something and it is a hindrance to you and it holds you back and it stifles you in some way, shape, or form, and it's sustained over a long period of time, that is oppression. It doesn't have to be from the government. That's why I hate when these men, when you get into these conversations, they want to like lean on that because that is a part of the trick of the system. It's like we took it out of the hands of the government, right? And we left it in the hands of the corporations. And you can't monitor a corporation in that way. You can't tell a corporation, well, the government has it. I'm pretty sure you could if you wanted to, but the government isn't. But if the government wants to market, a product a certain way, or they want to make a product a certain way, the government doesn't really have, they can't really come in and be like, no, you have to make, this for women and you have to make it the same. Like somebody, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that would be a really hard thing to do. Like somebody would have to sue them. It would probably take a decade to prove it. You know what I mean? Like, and it would just be for like that one product, right? Like until the government made it a law. So it's really hard to overcome oppression when it is done like individually. It looks like individually on a corporate level, right? Same thing for race, right? Like if the banks just aren't giving black people loans, I mean, it's tough to prove. It's tough to prove that they denied you on the basis of being black. That's what I'm saying. Like you would have to have like a whistleblower on the inside to expose it. But if you don't, short of that, it's damn near impossible.
They won't let me get my tubes tied because apparently I'm too young to make that decision.
Hi, I'm an OBGYN. I'll tie your tubes. I didn't realize that it was so difficult in this country to find an OBGYN who's going to tie your tubes for you if you were younger or child-free or not married. I was trained in a program that was very supportive of everyone having that autonomy over their own body. So I just didn't realize that this was such a struggle for so many people until I saw these videos on social media like this one. But I knew that there were many OBGYNs who felt like I did, that you deserve to have that autonomy over your own body. So I created a list of them. There's over 1,700 of us now in this document, and we are all over the country, all 50 states, every single metropolitan area, many rural areas. We have a doctor who will respect your own wishes for that autonomy over your own body. So no matter your age, your marital status, how many children you have, if you're a consenting adult, we'll tie your tubes for you. We can be found right here in my bio. And as a thank you, I think you should send me those tacos because they look bomb.
Now, nowhere does it say in our Constitution, in the state Constitution, whatever, nowhere does it say a woman can't get her tubes tied. It doesn't say that, right? But this is how oppression works. If a bunch of doctors just decide, because they don't have to do it, if a bunch of doctors just decide to not tie a woman's tubes, then it makes it hard for women to get their tubes tied. Like, that's just the reality. It doesn't need to show up in some legal documentation, right? But if she only has 1,700 doctors doing, there's tens of thousands of doctors. So if there's 50,000 OBGYN across the country, which I don't think is that many, but it's a bunch, right? And 1,700 of them are only 1,700, or let's say half of them are willing to tie your tubes. That is still oppressive. That's still oppressive. It is. Because every doctor should tie tubes, right? Like, why wouldn't you tie a woman's tubes? Who fucking cares? They would eat. If I went in there and I said that I wanted to get a vasectomy, no doctor would say, "Nah, man, you only 42." They're gonna snip it and clip it, right? So now we're starting to see early on how the oppression works. It doesn't have to be, on a government level. So imagine this is like your hospital. This is the local hospital that you go to. This is the only one you could get, whatever. It's just, you never know the situation logistically, right? This is what's happening at a hospital. Like, just for an example, just an example of what, to further prove my point on this thing.
A hospital in Colorado stops letting women get their tubes tied. Why? This happened last year around April 15th. The doctors were told that they can no longer provide post-cesarean section tubal ligation. The hospital already prohibited tubal ligations after vaginal births, but had been allowing them after C-sections because it had been considered an undue burden to make patients schedule a separate surgery at another hospital. But now they're not allowed to even do that. The hospital had recently completed a re-education of hospital staff and board members regarding the church's ethical and religious directives. So they can no longer perform tubal ligations because the hospital is responsible for conducting itself in a manner consistent with the ethical principles of the Catholic Church ministry. It's just another way to strip people of their bodily autonomy and reproductive rights, and has been a loophole for these hospitals to also not offer abortion care and ship actively miscarrying people to other hospitals. How I love being a woman.
Dangerous. The last part for sure. So yet again, see, very oppressive. Right? You don't think that's oppressive? Okay, I think it is. Making women who are miscarrying drive to another hospital, not respecting their bodily autonomy, and bringing in the church to justify doing all of this stuff, extremely oppressive. Also, separate church and state, just like separate church from medicine. Like, what the fuck are we doing? More fuck. If church and state should be separated, church and medicine should be on fucking polar opposite ends of one another. They have nothing to do with one another.
The biggest study ever on the pay gap, I think it was done by Harvard, basically looked at Uber drivers in America. The big reason it was the biggest because they had so much data. Uber obviously has so much data, and men and women both drive Ubers in America. They looked at the paying and they were like, well, women are getting paid less at Uber. So how does that make sense? Because it's obviously all automated. What a great way of studying male and female behavior to work out what is in this gap. And there's three things in the gap. The first was men drove at different times of night. So men would do the graveyard shifts, early mornings where you're getting paid more. They would want to do that. Women less so. The second was that men were more likely to stick with the platform for longer. So they had more experiences and they benefited from that experience. Makes sense of any job. And the third reason, which is 50% of the gap, was that men just drive faster. Just drive a little faster, guys, and you'll close that gap. That's Uber.
so funny.
That just shows it wasn't discrimination that's causing the pay gap in Uber. It was just behavior.
Heavy right foot.
Different types of behavior. And I guess we can have a discussion of what shapes that behavior, but we need to start that conversation with it's not discrimination, at least in Uber, different types of behavior.
Now, I showed this video, first of all, because it was interesting. But the first part of it, right? when they talk about it not being discrimination, here's what I'm saying about men. You're not understanding the correlation, right? So the first part, what does he say? The first reason why.
The biggest study ever on the pay gap, I think it was done by Harvard, basically looked at Uber drivers in America. The big reason it was the biggest because it had so much data. Uber obviously has so much data, and men and women both drive Ubers in America. They looked at the paying and they were like, well, women are getting paid less at Uber. So how does that make sense? Because it's obviously all automated. What a great way of studying male and female behavior to work out what is in this gap. And there's three things in the gap. The first was men drove at different times of night.
So men drove at different times at night, like the graveyard shift. Women wouldn't do that. Now, why do you think women wouldn't want to drive at night? Can anybody think about that? Like, not too late, but women don't want to drive Uber at all. And not because they don't like driving or they don't think they're good at it or whatever. It's simply because the threat of violence, right? Same thing. The threat of violence goes up the later you get into the night for women, right? So yeah, that is oppressive. As a group, systematically men oppress women. That fear is oppression. That fear is oppression. And it's a real fear. It's not like it's just made up. It's a real, very real concern, right? I will almost guarantee you, if you were a female Uber driver and you drove between the hours of 12 and 6 all the time, I will promise you, I will almost but guarantee you will be SA'd. Like 100% sure you will be SA'd. No doubt about it. I'm not saying that you might, you know what I'm saying? You may not get raped. You may, just flat out rape, but you'll get groped. Somebody, some dude's going to masturbate in your back seat. Like 100% chance, 100% chance. And that's the worst case of it. Now, everything before that's terrible. You're going to get harassed. Drunk dudes are going to hit on you, like all of that stuff. You're going to get all of that stuff. But I'm saying you're going to get flat out SA'd multiple times, guaranteed, right? That is oppressive. So if it's hindering women from making as much money as men, see how it plays out. Not only is their safety, right, being being encroached upon, but their ability to make money, which also leads to less, it affects their life, which could put them in less safe situations because they make less money, right? They may live in a more dangerous neighborhood because they can't afford to move out. You know what I mean? Like all of these things, money plays a big role in safety. That's what I'm saying. Like, I want men to really start paying attention to this stuff. It's the little things like that. That's a major thing though. But I'm saying it's not like, if you listen to him, you would come away from this thinking like, oh no, it's just that men just drive faster than women, right? Which men crash more than women. You know what I'm saying? If you did a comprehensive study of the frequency of accidents between men and women, it would not even be close. Men crash more than women. So women driving faster wouldn't be the solution for women. It wouldn't be, because they would just crash. They would just get into more accidents like men, which would take them out of being Uber drivers. And as far as the experience is concerned, another thing I could almost guarantee you, a reason why women don't drive Uber as long is because of the harassment, right?
So men would do the graveyard shifts, early mornings where you're getting paid more. They would want to do that. Women less so. The second was that men were more likely to stick with the platform for longer. So they had more experiences and they benefited from that experience. So
once again, why would a woman not continue to be an Uber driver? Could she not stick with the job? Is it the rigors of being an Uber driver? No. It's the harassment, day or night. Day or night, women are going to get harassed. No doubt about it. No question. The threat of violence, the uneasy, unsafe feelings. Ask women who do Uber Eats and things of that nature. I think Uber Eats is more dangerous because you got to get out your car. Like in the car, it's still dangerous, but getting out of your car, extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. You're completely exposed. At least if you're in your car, you're behind a 3,000-pound weapon, right? Like you could just punch it and drive and crash and make noise and honk the horn and you know what I'm saying? But if you walk up to somebody's doorstep and they pull up, tough, come in. Got you, right? Come in, got you. Okay. So now you're starting to see it looks subtle, it seems subtle, but it's like it affects women in major ways. Now, speaking of the wage gap, another thing you will hear from men is the wage gap isn't real. The wage gap
is very much a real thing. It has not been debunked. It is not a myth. The wage gap is real and it exists. Men and women are earning different things in the workforce, and men are still out earning women. And it is worst amongst mothers and fathers. This is when the gap widens the most. It is called the motherhood penalty. When a woman has a child, her lifetime earnings decrease. And with every child she has under the age of 5, they decrease even more. Whereas fathers have what's called the fatherhood premium. When they have children, their wages increase. So it's widening the gap. Men's wages increase, women's wages decrease when they become parents.
So 2 things. One reason why a bunch of women don't want to have kids. We do not as a society incentivize women to have kids. Not in America. 2, this is why men need to pay money when men, look at me. Here, we're here. You marry a woman. She has children. Even if you both are working, look at what happens. That's not fair to her that she loses money, right? What does she do? She's just having kids. We all say that that's the most important thing a woman can do. Not we all, but a lot of men will say that. A lot of men will try to, pull that bullshit on women like that's the most important thing you could do is have children. Prove it then. Prove it. Systemically, we should pay women more. We should pay mothers more. We should pay mothers more, not less. We should pay them more. I think mothers should make more than fathers. I think mothers should make more than fathers. Yes, absolutely. They're more than likely going to be doing the majority of the labor with the kids, and they're and they physically put their body on the line for the children, right? And most of them spend more time with the kids than the fathers too. Women should get paid more, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. When you get divorced, for the men that cry about divorce and, I got to give up money and I'm losing half of my shit and all that bullshit, right? Listen to what is going on. A woman has a child with a man or children with a man, and for every child she has, she gets paid less. Now it's 10, 12 years later into the marriage, 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't care, whatever it is. And now she has taken a reduction in pay. Who is going to compensate her? The government's not. But you went in half on that baby. So you got to pay her. And if you got to do it on the back end via alimony, child support, I wouldn't consider that. But alimony, because you're paying her the money, you need to do that. Because she just said that men make more when they have children and women make less. So you have to take that number, right? You have to take that number and then split it with her at the least. At the least, you have to split it with her. But in reality, what you should do is you should make it equal what you make. You know what I'm saying? Or you know what I mean? You should make it equitable, whatever that means, right? So if you need to give her all the difference, give her all the difference. If it's half, give her half. If it's 75%, give her 75%. But you should get her back up. Like if she lost, like whatever, not with you, but like if she lost, like if you were making $60,000 a year, and then when you guys met, she was making $60,000 a year, because that's what it looks like, by the way. When women don't have kids and men don't have kids, they make relatively the same amount of money, right? So if men are making $60,000 a year when they meet, and let's say he's still making the same 60, but now since she had a kid, she dropped down to 50 a year, right? And it's been 4 years, right? You owe her $40,000 in back fees, and moving forward, you owe her that extra 10 grand a month. Now you made, I'm sorry, so it ain't the same. So you made 60, but now you make 80, or now you make 70. 80 is a lot. Now you make 70 grand a year. Okay, cool. Where do you think that $10,000 came from? It came from her. So either give her all of it, or give her some of it, or give her most of it.
Isn't that interesting that we no longer view women as valuable in the workforce or worth their wage, essentially, once they become a mother? But dads, on the other hand, we do. And that's because societally, we view men as providers. We view them as family men. If they have a family and they have children, then they deserve more money. And here's the interesting thing. They don't just out-earn mothers.
They also think that men are like more likely to stay at the job, and you know what I'm saying? Like they'll be more settled, they'll settle in the job better. You know what I'm saying? When you're younger and you don't have any kids or whatever, the likelihood that you're going to move around or you're going to be here for a year and then dip out after they trained you and all of that, it's pretty high. So that's another reason why they pay men more or whatever in those cases.
They're not just out-earning women, they're out-earning men without children. When men become fathers, they earn more money than men without children. The wage gap still very much exists, and so much of this is rooted in our societal conditioning and the biases we have towards men and women in the workforce and also in the home. We view men as providers and family men who need to be able to put food on the table, and we view women's place as being in the home. And so once they have children, we no longer see them as dedicated, hardworking individuals who deserve to earn the same amount of,
which still artificially inflates men's value in the home, right? So yeah, it ain't 1950. It's not as stark, right? It's not where the men are making 100% of the money. No, but if they're making 25% more total, right? Mine, because you got to account for her loss and then his gain. So if he's making 25% more effectively, she's more dependent on him. It's like they're doing everything they can to trap women in these relationships. Women can't get their tubes tied. Women, only 10% of women get out, or only 10% of people get alimony after divorce. Child support ain't shit. Like they keep saying, like it's the opposite of what men are saying when they say that that divorce is incentivized. It's not. Women do better with men in this case. Right? Once a woman has a child, she doesn't benefit if she leaves the man. Women who aren't married make more money than women who are married, right? But that total number is taken also from women who are divorced who aren't married anymore, right? So it drops the numbers because she just pointed out once a woman has a child, those numbers go down, right? Which women should start lying about having kids. You should never tell people that you have kids at this point, right? Anyways, but so the average, it fucks up the average, right? Because like I said, when women don't have kids, are compared to men who don't have kids, they make roughly the same amount of money, right? So they have created this artificial need for artificial need for women to stay with men. They're doing everything they can, and men are just going around lying about this shit.
Men, even if they're doing the same job. And it's interesting, oftentimes people will point to the fact that women are out of the workforce. Women are out of the workforce because they had those babies and they take parental leave. And oftentimes they're taking parental leave that maybe is available to them through their state or through their employer. And it's the same as medical leave or something like that. Men often don't take that because they're afraid of being punished, which is why this gap continues to widen. One of the craziest things about this is so often when you have children as a woman, people will encourage you to stay at home while your children are young. They'll encourage you to stay home, be with the kids while they're young, and when they get to public school, you can go back to the workforce. Then they paint this picture that that's possible for you. But what that does is that decreases your earnings even further. It puts women even more financial risk than if they just took their regular maternity leave, which is already quite short. And so it's interesting. The motherhood penalty exists whether or not you have 6 months of paid leave or 2 weeks of paid leave or no paid leave, because so many women don't have it. And then they're encouraged to leave the workforce. And then when they try to come back, people say, well, that's a huge gap on your resume. You haven't been in the workforce. We're going to start you back at zero. When you graduated college, you'll be making very little money, and best of luck trying to get back to where you were. You are not going to out-earn men in this industry because you have been set back. Because we told you that you should stay home and that you could come back, but we didn't mean that. That was a lie.
Jesus Christ. So again, you see all the ways that it doesn't have to be documented, but women suffer. Women are oppressed. Doesn't have to be documented. Doesn't have to be, because they rationalize it, right? It's like, yeah, like she said, oh, look, you took 2 years off. I mean, obviously we can't pay you more. So they rationalize it. But it's all like it doesn't have to be like, there's no reason for it to be like that. It's just an arbitrary bullshit rule. That's it. So, like I've been telling y'all, it doesn't have to be the government is like putting forth any of this stuff. Now, because you can't stop manufacturers from building what they want to build or whatever the case may be, right? When I say can't, I'm just saying it's extremely hard. But now we have the car situation. Once again, these are things that are common. Like women know these things, right? A lot of people know these things. But listen how fucked up this is.
Did you know that women cause most car accidents, but men are more likely to die from them? Did you know that men are 17% more likely to die in a car accident than a woman? Did you know that men are 73% more likely to be seriously injured in a car accident than a woman? No, because it's not true. It's the other way around. This person is responding to someone who brought up the truth that cars are designed for white, cis men. And it's true. And I'll tell you why. All the crash test dummies are male. They're based on an average white man. The good news is that 1 week ago, Swedish designers created the first ever female crash test dummy. All of our car ratings basically revolve around testing safety of cars based on an average white man. And when they did start to introduce female crash test dummies, they were just like a smaller version of a man. So women actually have completely different body structures and respond like female AFAB bodies respond very differently in a crash to male bodies. Which is why women are 17% more likely to die in car accidents, even though most car accidents are caused by men.
How does this not make you upset as a man? Like, you don't love your wife, you don't love your daughters. And I hate to do that because I hate that has to be said. But like, if you can't relate to it on a human level, can you at least relate to it on a personal level? Aren't you the protector? Doesn't this upset you? You don't hear this and you don't. It's because I sold cars for a long time. Every single time my wife gets in a car, I used to laugh at it, but then I started being like, this shit is crazy. Like, I don't even want this woman driving anywhere. She has to, my wife has to be right here on the fucking steering wheel. Like, as close as this mic is, that's how close her face is to the steering wheel. I don't like that. I don't like that. That is very scary to me. If somebody hits her, which she's been in accidents before that she doesn't cause because she fucking drives safely, right? She's a woman. She drives safely. Not to say all women drive safely, but most women do. They drive more safely than men. And my wife has been in accidents that she didn't cause, and airbags have been deployed and so on and so forth. Well, no. The airbag wasn't deployed in that accident, thank goodness. But yeah, she has been in these accidents, and what's going to happen? Like, what would happen if she was driving and the freaking airbag goes off and it's freaking 2 feet away or 3 inches away from her fucking face? Blow up her chest, fucking burn her nose off type shit. Like, I don't fucking know. This shit is infuriating to me. Like, I'm very upset when I hear stuff like this. Like, as a human being, as a man, that I don't have to worry about this. Like, I don't have to think about this. I'm a man, right? But then I'm like, what the fuck? My wife has it. My mom? Oh my God, my niece? This shit should upset you to no end. And you should start digging on your own to figure out all the ways in which women are oppressed. This is another form of oppression that's not documented. I mean, it's documented, but it's not in a legal documentation. It doesn't say all cars should be made for men and not women. Like, you won't see it show up in that way, right?
And so yes, these things are designed to exclude us specifically, and we are dying. New dummy, which has just been developed, also accounts for differences in the muscle strength and joint stiffness, and has a fully flexible spine that allows researchers to understand how a crash might impact the entire spine. Female size dummies were introduced in 2003, but they weren't actually female bodies, they were just smaller male bodies. Cars are just the tip of the iceberg. This is obviously an issue across the medical field and across so many technological kind of designs. But yeah, we're literally dying. So maybe just put a lid on it.
There are so many examples of this. Like I said, I just picked the ones that I have heard everybody talk about. And, some of my favorite ones from the book, Invisible Women. If you guys don't have it, you should get it. It's very interesting. So let's go back to how women make less money than men, right? So if women make, 15% less money than men, right? Women with children specifically, if they make less money than men, that's oppressive. But then they go out and they have to spend more money for their products, right? So if they're making 15% less and they're spending 5% more on average for their products, that's a 20% difference between men and women, how much money men make and how much money women make, right?
Fun fact, the pink tax is the extra amount women pay for everyday products or services marketed towards women versus the same product or service but marketed towards men. From cradle to cane, a 2015 study of gender pricing in New York City found, on average, girls' toys cost 7% more than boys' toys, girls' clothes cost 4% more than boys' clothes, women's clothing cost 8% more than men's clothing, and women's personal care products cost 13% more than men's personal care products. The pink tax was first spotted in the early 1990s when the California Assembly Office of Research found 64% of stores in 5 major California cities charged a higher price to wash and dry clean a women's blouse compared to a man's button-up shirt. In 1995, California passed the Gender Tax Repeal Act, which says no business may discriminate with respect to the price charged for a service or product against a person because of the person's gender.
They had to legally combat it. Now only in the state of California, I'm saying it's not only the state of California, I'm sure other states did this, but in the state of California, they say, yeah, you can't do that. So the government can do this, but they haven't done it federally yet. And I wonder why. We don't care about women paying more money for the same products that men buy. It's crazy.
In 2021, Congresswoman Jackie Speer introduced a bill to ban the pink tax nationwide, but no official action has yet been taken.
Exactly. I wonder why. This is what I'm talking about. Men, we need to care about this. Hey, how about we rally around getting rid of the pink tax? How about we help women make more money? That will help you too, man. I don't know if you know that. That'll help you too. If my wife doesn't have to spend as much money on stuff, hey, that's more money in my house. If my wife gets paid more money, that's more money in my house, right? I'm saying, like, if I'm looking at it through like how it benefits me, that benefits me. I wouldn't do it for that reason. I would do it just for the women, but I'm saying for the people that need to hear that, there you go. It benefits you too. Benefits your children too. Jesus Christ, man. Let's get behind them. Come on. Let's help them. Let's start talking about this shit. I just really want men to stop being so selfish and just let's, instead of talking about it's not all men, instead of talking about all these good guys that exist, how about we start showing women how we can show up for them, right? This doesn't require much. Like, I'm just write a letter to your congressperson, right? Get online and start talking about it. Start a discourse about it, right? Really start planting that seed in other men's brains. Go into those spaces where men are talking, I don't care, locker rooms, at the barbershop, really talk about that shit. Bring it up in conversations. The same way you bring up the misogynistic shit that you bring up around men, bring up the feminist stuff. Bring up the stuff that helps women and children, right? Let's start talking about it more. Let's just start having a conversation. Let's start there, right? Before anything, you guys, all right, cool. You guys don't want to fucking start marching and all, that's fine. But can you at least start talking about it?